What's going on there, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie, also known as Driveway Built 460. In today's episode, we are going to be installing more lights to the GX460. Yes, you heard that right. More lights, as if I don't have enough lights already on the vehicle. We're going to be adding more. So today, we're going to be checking out something that completely changes the look of my GX460 at night. And so we're checking out the MICTUNING Q2 Max RGB+IC Rock Lights. So these are RGB+IC Rock Lights, which means you're not just getting one solid color. You're going to get a full-on chasing effects, custom zones, and a ton of controls straight from your phone. So let's go ahead, unbox these, take a look at what's inside, and go over some details about them. Then afterwards, we'll jump right into the install. All right, so let's see here. We got some stickers, pamphlet, of course, and then the lights themselves. So they look like they're going to be side specific. So one's left and then one is right. So I did get the 12 pods. We got some hardware, mounting hardware, and of course the brain. The rest of the pods, and again, these are all side specific, so left and right. So check this out. Each box came with this certificate of inspection. I think that's pretty cool. Timestamp the actual date that this was QC'd. So you don't see this too often. So I think that's pretty cool. Everything is unboxed. So what I did was, because they are site specific, everything over here to the right is going to be for, of course, the driver's side, and everything over here to the left is all for the passenger side. Our brain is over here. We have our extended wires back over here, and the hardware along with the mounting cups here. I don't think I'll be using these, so I'm going to go ahead and just put these back in the box. The hardware, I don't think I'll be using these either, but I tend to be a screw, bolt, nut hoarder, so this is going to go back into my collection of hardwares. Now, MICTUNING was kind enough. I asked if they can send me out some extra extensions, and they did. So these are 2 extra extensions that they sent over to me. Connecting the wires are pretty simple. You have a convex and also a concave side, so you basically just put them together. So just like so, find the matching arrows, which you guys can see right there, and also back alongside over here, and just put them in the corresponding direction that they're in. Once you have that there, cinch on the cap here, and that will seal the connection. That way you don't have to worry about water intrusion affecting your wires. For the control box, we have our right and also our left, so you cannot mess this up by any means at all. Get a bunch of wires over here. So what I'm going to do is, you do have a switch-like style clicker here, so you can turn on the lights, the rock lights. And I don't think, obviously, I'm going to plug this up directly into my switch panel, so this is going to be pretty much obsolete. So we'll get that going, but let's go ahead and talk more about the lights. All right, so what makes these stand out from the rest of your typical rock lights? Well, just by looking at it, the construction, this is a hard either aluminum or type of structure, but it's much more of a sturdier quality from that. And then first off, these use a side glow design, so right over here. So according to the manual, this has 36 LEDs around here, and it puts out about 400 lumens of light. So that means they're pretty bright. So I have 12 of these, so I should have no problem lighting up the ground with these lights. And the biggest feature, the RGB+IC technology. That means each pod can run multiple colors at the same time, instead of just one solid color across the whole setup. Okay, so rock lights, they have mounting points, right? So how am I going to mount these without using the hardware? Well, we'll put this to the side. In front of me, I have a box of magnets. So I've used this before in the past. I've watched several Instagram videos and also TikTok videos. And they basically, what they do is grab these magnets here. These magnets are able to hold 40 pounds per magnet. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to put them right there along each side. And since I don't have my JB weld, I'm going to be using this Gorilla Glue epoxy. So again, 40 pounds per magnet, so that's plenty enough to hold these in place. I forgot to tell you guys that the pack does come with these adhesives. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to just double the amount of coverage here. So on the magnet themselves, so you have this section here, which is the flat surface, and you have the other section here, which has like these little ridges here. This is the side you want to face them out, so that way it magnetizes onto the metal surface. If you go the opposite way, then you lose that effect.
The next day,
I had a situation with the curing process using the epoxy. Unfortunately, the epoxy just basically, it just sat on here. It just was not gluing, and it just was not curing properly. So I let that sit for a whole entire 24 hours and it did nothing. So I went ahead and stopped at the store, picked up some JB Weld, and this is the next day, but this is much more sturdy. This is not coming off. So a real quick test. So here's the magnets, here's the light pod itself. So if I go stick it onto my shop press here, there you have it. We're gonna go ahead and work on a control box and get this mounted onto and get this wired into my switch panel. So back over here, I think I'm going to use slot number 7. Current status. So you guys recall the switch that's here. So I went ahead and I pulled off the wires, chopped off the ends here. I basically put the blue and yellow and red lead together, and also applied the brown and black lead for the ground together and put them all back in the terminal. We have power from the switch panel to the rock lights now. So again, we're going to be using circuit number 7. So if I tap this button here, that turns it on. And if I go back over to my work table, you guys can now see that the rock light is on. All right, so in my wheel well, there's metal over here, but it's lined with some kind of a rubberized paint. And of course I have the plastic fender liners over here. And it basically goes around from there to also towards the front. So what I can do is I can place this and put it just right about there if I wanted to, or I can put it right here even if I'd like. But with rubberized coating, it doesn't really give you too much of a bond for the magnetic to attach to the surface. All right, so I think I'm going to put the first pod right over here along the metal of the fender well here. This is a good spot that I can keep it at. Now it's just going to be basically putting the rest of them along the fender well. And I'll repeat this for the driver's side. We'll figure out where to put this on the rock sliders and also the back of the fender once we get there. Okay, so I think I have my first 2 pods all set up. Now that I have this kind of daisy chain together, I'm going to zip tie them all together. I'm going to basically tuck them right behind this fender liner right over here. All right, so that's nice and bundled up. But yeah, see, so check that out. No wires are exposed. Everything is nice and tucked in. So this will be a nice and clean install without having a bunch of wires everywhere. The other lead over here, this is going to connect back over to the control box or the brain for the module itself. So we have this one left, which we'll do this last. Let's move on to the sliders now. If you guys follow along, so the wires are tucked behind the fender liner, and then the other end of the actual connection is back over here. What we're going to do is we're going to grab the extension wires, hook it up with this connection over here, the convex to the concave side, and run the wires towards the center of the rock sliders. And then let's grab our, find our arrows. Once we have them, we can make that connection. Again, the red gasket, that's going to be the weather O-ring there to keep everything nice and tight. We're going to go ahead and make the rest of our connections. I'm going to feed this on through. My slider is right over here. And then we'll zip tie the connection back over here so that it doesn't come on forward and gets caught on my tire. I can put this either right here, right there where that's at, or I can put it alongside somewhere over here towards the inside. We'll figure it out. All right guys, we're working on the rear now. So I've already ran the other extension through underneath these rock sliders and then back over. We're gonna run them down the wires. I'm gonna open up the back of this running board here and run the wires right behind this section here and over where I have my rock light on this section here and also back right over there on that side. So back over here, there's a ton of rubberized paint. So it's just super thick. So when I go to put the rock light on, it barely has any contact. So I really can't use this section here. So the thinnest spot is just way up over here. So it's going to cut out some of the light, unfortunately, but I think it'll still work and get the effect that I need to have it done for the most part. I'll take my other end of the connection here and just feed it right behind here and just right on through. And just bring all the wires right on through. So moving on to the next part. I've already got part of this wire zip tied and bundled and ready to go. So I'm gonna basically stick this right behind the fender over here and keep it right back over here, tucked in, hidden back over here. So you're wondering how I'm going to be able to keep it back over here without having it kind of just dangle the way it is. So if you guys already haven't discovered this, these are adhesive tie mounts. You basically peel this off, right? And just stick it right behind the fender back over here. Of course, you want to make sure you clean and prep this area to make sure it's nice and clean of any oil or residue, so that way when this gets tacked on, it stays on back over here. I've already done that, so we're going to go and just stick them on right back over here for one, and one right back over here towards the rear door to keep this all to keep all the line here nice and organized. But you guys can take a look. This is what it looks like when it's all secured back there, those tie mounts. But yeah, guys, just a little tip for you guys if you guys don't know. But that'll keep everything nice and organized without having it come on down and drape on down, which is not that pretty. All right, guys, so I'm going to be putting the rock light, or at least I'm going to find a spot I can put this at. So there's a ton of metal surfaces I can put here, and I think I'm going to put it right here in this spot. So if I just put it like that, yeah, there we go. Nice and simple, pretty sturdy where it's at. Not gonna go anywhere. You can see the metal here kind of just flexing as I pull on this, but this will be the spot where I want to keep this one over here, and we'll move on to the next once we make that connection. All right, so with the rest of this wiring here, I'm gonna just basically zip tie this right along the back of this frame here. All right, so this is nice and secured, out of the way. Don't have to worry about anything rubbing up against this area, catching onto the wire. So the back end for the rock light is complete. All right, guys, real quick update. I had every intention of putting the MICTUNING control box right up here in this corner of the engine bay, but I decided to refrain from doing that, and I've moved it now from there to right over here towards the engine bay. So if I come on down through all these parts here, there it is. The control box is right there, right next to my worn winch control box. So if I have to go back and service it for whatever the case it may be, at least it's right here in the front where it's easily accessible. All right, guys, so this was a pretty straightforward and easy install. Let's see if they work. And there we go. You guys can now see they're fully on. One's gonna be a yellow, the other one's gonna be blue. So remember, this is gonna be zoned controlled. So that means I can control independently each corner of the wheel to different colors, which is pretty cool. But the main thing is, we now know that this all works. So obviously it is now nighttime. I got the rock lights on, the vehicle's running at the same time, just so that way I don't have to worry about the battery running out on my GX. I'm not gonna try to raise my voice because I am outside and I don't want the neighbors looking or thinking I'm being weird and being suspicious. But either ways, I'm gonna go through the app and show you guys how that all works. I won't go through the extensive details about how the app works, but it'll just kind of give you guys a general idea how they work with the app with the Rock Lights. I've got the app running, and you guys can already see there's modes below here, and right above here you guys can see the different zones. You can control the lights individually. So a little preface, I did do the install incorrectly. Apparently left means passenger side and right means driver side, so I got that all mixed around, so forgive me for that. I'm going to go through the app so you guys can see how this is going to function for the zone controls. So I'm going to go ahead and long press the driver's side, but actually it's going to be the passenger side. If you take a look, you long press it and it'll pop up a different screen, and this is where you can change the color to whatever you want that you can see in this color wheel here. I'm going to go ahead and select red, hit on OK, and then confirm down the very bottom of the right, and you'll see the color will change from white to red. All right, so at this point, let's take a look at the modes. We can go to rebound, flow of water, and you can also change the brightness on the app. And you can also change the frequency of how fast the light will strobe on you. Given that I have DRLs that are amber, I guess it's pretty cool that I can change all the zones and make it also match and make it amber with the rest of the light setup. Just like this. Looks pretty cool, kind of like a Halloween theme in some ways, right? All right, guys, we are wrapping things up. First and foremost, I want to give a huge shout out to MICTUNING for sending over the Q2 Rock Lights for the GX460 build. The install came out incredible. Lights are bright. With these MICTUNING Q2 Rock Lights, this is going to completely change the vibe and the look and the feel of my GX, which is great, especially at nighttime and out there on our trails. And to everyone watching, I just want to give you guys a huge thanks for continuing supporting the channel. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on that notification so you don't miss out on anything GX related, whether it's upgrades or even my outdoor adventures. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out, guys.